Good morning. Thanks very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here at the Good Oil Conference. It's a great industry event. So I'm here to talk to you about the Bowsprit project, a conventional oil development project offshore Louisiana. Here's our disclaimer. I won't read every word of that. So in summary, what are we doing? We have somewhat reinvented Sun over the course of the last few years, and we've decided to focus on conventional oil in the Gulf of Mexico. We found a relatively neglected part of the Gulf of Mexico, in the shallow water southeast of New Orleans, where we have our first lease, which is about just over 1,000 acres. We're targeting conventional exploration and development assets, good quality reservoirs, light sweet oil, and as of yesterday, we announced that we're ready to seek a farming partner to join us in the project. We're offering a near-term opportunity, low cost, low risk, horizontal development well into a previously produced sand with good exploration upside. This is a redevelopment project. We're going to put a well into a field that has previously flowed oil, and we expect that first well to be drilled in the first quarter of 2020, and by tieback we should be able to bring that on within the space of a couple of months, so we should be producing by the middle of 2020. The initial well cost is only $3.6 million US, and we think that the break-even oil price should be in the order of $25 to $30 a barrel. So we're offering something that's low risk, high return, and provides a good return on investment. For our investors, that is bringing us consistent news flow over the course of the next 6 months as we lead towards drilling and production. Corporate snapshot, we have a market cap of about 2.7 million. Some money in the bank, and we have supportive shareholders. Fastlane have been very important to us in supporting us as we've reinvented the company, and the board has bought in and to own a significant chunk of the company, owning nearly 10%. This is the board. Ian and Bill are well established within the industry. There's myself. Patrick has just joined us on the board. He is part of GTT, who are our corporate advisor, who joined us and raised our initial money, our last money, helped us raise our money in August, and have a 12-month advisor mandate to help us progress the company and take it forward. So where are we and why are we there? We reinvented Sun over the course of the last couple of years, and we selected this area in the Gulf of Mexico primarily because it is a very prolific region of the region. Miocene sands have produced over 3 billion barrels of oil along the Louisiana coast, and the area within this red oval has produced over 1 billion barrels of oil and 5 TCF of gas. It's very, very shallow water. It's only sort of a few meters of water depth. And the area where we are, it's less than 3 meters of water. There, we're going to use shallow water barge drilling. These barge rigs are very cheap because the industry is not utilizing them a lot at the moment, so the cost of those are very low. And we see that there is existing infrastructure to tie into and readily available services. Just going back, it was very important to us in picking a new area to find an area that not only had a good initial project, but lots of running room, and that's what we believe we've got here. So the Bowsprit lease, we selected this one initially because it contains several historical fields, gas fields and oil fields, but particularly an undeveloped oil field. The initial discovery was by Shell in 1955, where they discovered a deep gas field at a depth of around 9,500 feet. They had a 450-foot gas column, and they produced this with vertical wells. As the vertical wells were drilled, they encountered shallower sands, and particularly a couple of relatively thin oil sand, one relatively thin oil sand, and a relatively thin gas sand. Some small companies attempted to put these back on production in the 1960s. They produced around a BCF of gas from the gas sand at 7,200 feet, and they produced about 75,000 barrels of oil from the oil sand. Now, the oil wells did okay, 100 barrels a day type sort of thing from a few feet of perforations. But what we believe is that if we go back and put a horizontal well in between these former producers, we should be able to produce at least 500,000 barrels of oil and possibly more. We have additional potential in the block, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we go on. So we're going to use these barge drilling rigs, which gives us very low-cost drilling, low-cost production facilities. These can be put in place for a few $1 million. There's extensive infrastructure and offtake agreements. Horizontal drilling is very established technology now. The area that we're in had its heyday in the 1950s through to early 80s and was pretty much abandoned and exited by the early 90s. Horizontal drilling didn't really come to the majority of the industry until the late 90s, and so we believe that horizontal wells are the way to go. There has been a little bit of horizontal drilling in the area. There was a couple of horizontal wells drilled into a field about 15 kilometers south of where we are. They drilled into a field that's been on production for 30 years. What they did was look to put in horizontal wells between existing producers, and they drilled to produce unswept oil. They put 750-foot long horizontal sections in. The wells tested at 1,500 barrels a day, came on, produced 1,000 barrels a day, and declined from there. RISC, who've looked at the project for us in our reservoir, they modelled a well based on the performance of the vertical wells and the implied reservoir quality on the back of that. And they estimate that a new well should be capable of producing 2,000 barrels of oil a day and it may recover about 670,000 barrels. So primarily, we've got one firm horizontal well we're going to drill and put on production. We have additional potential in the reservoir and in the sands, and if we find that, we could add another 4 horizontal wells and look to further develop the field. When RISC looked at this early days, they did the interpretation primarily on the seismic that we had and a few raster logs that were utilised. We have the proven gas sand that produced from here. There's about 2 BCF of gas in there, and a BCF of gas was produced, and we consider that to be essentially depleted. And we have the proven oil sand here, which produced, and then an underlying sand which potentially closes against the fault up to the northwest of the field. So in simple terms, we have a proven area that's produced oil, and we have an up-dip area that has potential for oil and gas, potential for oil, but is as yet undrilled. These are the official resource summary that we've got, and this remains in place, but I'm going to talk to you about what we've been doing since looking at the oil. So RISC estimate that the oil in place in the upper Miocene sand, the one that's produced, is roughly between 1 million and 12 million barrels, and the deeper sand has between 1 million and 50 million barrels in place. Now, they looked at it as in a probabilistic statistical sense. We've been focused on where to drill our first well and what to do there. So we built a 3D geological model. We found additional logs and data since RISC did their study. And we've determined that the reservoir that we've got, the field that we've got, sits on the boundary between the middle Miocene and the upper Miocene. So our proven sand is a upper Miocene sand, and the lower sand, which has the potential, is a middle Miocene sand. And it sits on the sequence boundary. And it was that sequence boundary and the base of the shale that sits in between the two reservoirs, between the 7200 sand and the 7400 sand, that were the main picks that established the sort of range of oil in place that we've got. So what we've been looking to do is establish where to drill the well to give us the best chance of success. So the light green area here represents the structural closure within the field, and the dark green here, the darker green here, is the upper Miocene sand that contains the definite proven flowed oil, and then this area here is the middle Miocene sand that is up dip or higher, shallower than the proven flowed oil in this area here. So we've got a very high confidence that we've got about 1.5 to 3 million barrels in this area here, which we should be able to produce, and then we've got up to 13 million barrels in good quality clean sand above that known oil. If the fault seals, then we've got ourselves quite a healthy looking field. So what are we planning to do? We're looking to drill a vertical appraisal well, vertical pilot hole that goes through test the middle Miocene sand here, and possibly a further deepen it by 500 feet to test a gas lead in here. We're going to pull back and then put the horizontal well in between the known former producers. We announced yesterday that we completed our site survey, and we're in full speed to get the permit in place for drilling the well. So we should be permitted by sometime in December, and we'll be ready to drill in the first quarter of 2020. And with a tieback, we could be potentially on production a few months later. So what does it look like in real life? Well, this is one of the barge rigs. The way these things work is they're shallow draft. They can float in less than 10 feet of water. They come in, they land on the seabed, and then they drill almost as if it was a land drilling operation. Once we've drilled the well, flow tested it, if we're comfortable that the well is going to be a future producer, we'll suspend the well with a protection cage around it, put a navigation beacon, etc. on there, suspend the well, and then come back to put in modest unmanned production facilities that look a bit like this. This stuff can be put in for just a few $1 million and put in very rapidly. So, as I said, the area we believe has got scope for a lot of these small projects. We particularly picked the Bowsprit project because it's produced oil in its past, and we have a very high degree of confidence that we can produce oil from there. We've seen a number of other opportunities, particularly within the seismic that we've already acquired and in the well databases available in Louisiana. We think that there's potential to pick up several of these projects, string them together, and turn it into a real niche for the company. There's very little competition in the area, and that should give us long-term potential. We also see the opportunity to do, as they've done in the Perth Basin, go a little deeper than that's been done previously, and look for long-term growth out of bigger, deeper prospects. Over the course of the next few months, we've got a lot of good news flow. We're going to be permitting our well location. We're seeking farm-in partner, and we'll be announcing those. Once we're permitted to drill, we'll move towards the drilling phase, contracting the rig, moving out there, and drilling the well first quarter of next year. Then we've got the reserves update, hopefully, and moving to production shortly thereafter. So, in summary, we're seeking to deliver value for our shareholders. We have 100% of this permit. We're looking for a farm-in partner, and we believe that it's a very attractive offering. There are farm-out flyers next to our booth, next to our poster outside in the main lobby. And if you'd like to come and talk to us about the farm-in, please do. And we should have good news over the course of the next 6 months. So, thank you very much.